The Beats warp mode in Ableton gets kind of a bad rap. As Ableton's default warp mode, I'm sure most people are pretty shocked with how poorly it handles time stretching, pitch shifting, and just the general normal things that you would expect when stretching audio with some warp mode like this. But the user manual does say, Beats mode works best for material where rhythm is dominant. This means drum loops, as well as pieces of electronic dance music. The granulation process is optimized to preserve transients in the audio material. Notice the word granular, as in it takes fragments of the audio and loops them back and forth on themselves. Kind of like in Sampler when you select the continual loop mode. This means that the audio will start playing at the beginning, work its way along, and when it gets to the end, it'll jump back to the beginning. And there's a fade knob that you can edit to have it fade back into itself. Then to the right of that is another option with two arrows going in opposite directions. It'll play the audio, then it will get to the end, and then it will just start reversing itself back to the beginning. And you can actually hear the reverse audio happening as it's going back instead of it jumping from the end back to the beginning again. So when a transient happens, that means when a hit occurs and Ableton can see that spike in the waveform, that is where it's going to start this granular back and forth looping process. And remember, it's happening at an extremely small scale, very fast. So if I was to select the really small part of this drum loop, right? So this is what it is now. But if I just select the really, really small part of it, and then move the loop around, it's effectively doing what Beats mode is about to do automatically. Out of all of the warp modes, I tend to stick to Complex or Complex Pro, just because they are the most basic, plain old. You can stretch audio out, you can pitch it up, you can pitch it down, whatever. But when it comes to drums, percussion, or melodic synth stuff, I use Beats mode religiously, and here's why. So I have a drum loop loaded up from the Break Selection by Sample Magic, which is a drum pack that you can get from Ableton's website. This is what the drum loop sounds like right now. If we were to halftime this, you can hear those grains happening, and you can see, once again down here, a familiar double arrow going in opposite directions. You can also select two forward arrows, which is now just going to loop everything forward and then skip back to the beginning. If you're trying to make kind of glitchy electronic music, this already is sounding pretty good, but I like to use this for tight percussion sounds or to just tighten up the drums. The last setting at the top is an arrow pointing forward. This means it's not going to loop back on itself. It's going to take that transient, right, when it spikes, and it's just going to trail off into nothing every time a transient happens. So this is what that sounds like. You'll notice it sounds pretty much identical to the original, but watch what happens when I pull down this 100. It's almost acting like a really, really tight gate. So if we use this on one of my drum loops, so I can kind of show you how I use it in a practical manner. Now you might be wondering to yourself, what is the practical use for this? Well, it's literally just to tighten drums up. You'd be surprised how good drums can sound when you just kind of pull this 100 down a little bit on any of these drum sounds, even on tambourines and other percussion stuff. You just pull it down, and then I'll hit Command J. This consolidates the audio, and this is what it looks like now. You can see it's a little bit tighter. Now you can switch the warp over to Complex Pro and mess around with stuff. Add another drum loop in here and do the same thing. Select that forward pointing arrow that goes into the wall and just drag the 100 down. And this also works in clip mode. I'll just type in a MIDI drum beat. If we freeze and flatten it, we'll see its warp mode is set to beat, so we just do the line into the wall and just drag the 100 down again. We can just mess with it now. We can saturate it and stuff, put a drum bus on it, turn up the boom, And I already have an idea, so we'll flatten that again. And we'll bring it over to session view. And now we have this. Another thing that I like to use Beats Mode for is chopping up samples automatically. I have this synth sound here. And if you go down to your Beats Mode selector area, under Preserve, it says Transients automatically, and that's what we've been doing so far. You can also tell it when you want the transients to trigger. I usually use like 8th note or 16th note, and it sounds like this. You get these nice little chopping effects. And so if you consolidate that, you can see now it has these kind of pulses in it. And you can even take this a step further, then consolidate again. Now it sounds like this. And we just do it again. Go to Beats Mode, arrow into the wall. We'll do 16th notes again. Make it go fast. Now let's hear what that sounds like. And you can really get crazy with everything. And you can just follow this process till the end of time. Here I have a project that I was working on the other day on a live stream I was doing. You can hear it tightens up and subdues the drums a little bit without sacrificing like their punch. You can also use it to kind of generate beat ideas. So if you take a drum break and do the Beats Mode, now I'm going to freeze and flatten that. And I'm going to go into its groove area and select a mild 8th note swing. Now it sounds like this. Which might not sound, you know, too crazy, but if you pair that with just a straight 8th note groove, it just can help you generate ideas pretty quick. It can also be used in drum racks in the simpler. So say you have a hi-hat that's very kind of, it's longer than you want it to be. You just hit warp, select beats, do the same thing, and just bring that 100 down. I usually just zero it out. And now the hi-hat sounds like this. So before it sounded like this, now it sounds like this. In my track Pale Hardcastle, you can hear this technique all over the drums. And in a more recent track, Keep Me Warm, you can hear it all over the synth parts. Well, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something about Beats Mode today. I remember when I learned about this, I nearly lost my mind. Play around, have some fun, and solve your problems by making art. Okay, bye.